After 10 years of the Trudeau-Carney Liberals, Canada's economy is weaker and more reliant than ever. Especially, and we've lost $500 billion because of the high taxes here. Mr. Carney supported carbon taxes on Canada while he invested in American coal. He opposed the Northern Gateway pipeline in Canada while he bought pipelines abroad. Yesterday, his newly appointed Environment Minister reaffirmed that the Carney Liberal government will impose an energy production cap, which the Parliamentary Budget Officer just confirmed will cost 50,000 jobs. This proves that Carney is still faithful to his radical, keep it in the ground, net zero insanity. Nothing will change. In fact, it will get worse. And that will be good for rich global elites like him and the multinational corporations that profit off of Canada's weakness. We know that Mr. Carney's company abuses workers. They bust unions. They invested in companies that busted unions. He also, in a very tragic case, one of the insurance arm of Carney's company, Brookfield, profited by denying the insurance claims of coal miners dying from black lung. These are workers who, by breathing in dust in the ground, became extremely sick, and when they went to get the insurance that they had paid for, they were denied by Carney's, the company that does the insurance for Brookfield. They profited off that. In fact, this company lost in court. The court found that the company was wrong. Now, Mr. Carney needs to tell us, is he still invested in a company that abuses workers' rights and denies coal miners and their widows the benefits that they deserve? Mark Carney will never stand up for the working people. He will only stand up for the millionaire and billionaire global elites. That is all that he has ever done. He's only done two things in Canada since he came back from Europe. One, move his headquarters out of Canada to New York, taking jobs from our country to the United States, just like Trump wanted. And two, acting as Trudeau's economic advisor, supporting all of his policies, no matter what he tries to tell you now. But just wait, you'll see, he'll be copying my next announcement. It will be, about 3 or 4 days, he'll be ripping off the announcement that I made today as he pretends to support the things that I stand for 30 days before an election. The choice in the next election is very clear. One is to bring jobs home, the other is to ship jobs abroad. One is to bring real change, the other is to cling on to power for a fourth consecutive term. One is to cut taxes, and the other is to raise them. One puts Canada first, the other puts Carney first. And the question in the next election will be further, can Canada afford a fourth term of the Liberals, led by Mark Carney, who, working with Trudeau, made Canada weaker and poorer, and is too weak and conflicted to stand up to Donald Trump? Or do we think it's time for a real change with a Conservative government that will stand up to Trump from a position of strength, unleash growth, bring home jobs, axe taxes, build homes, secure our border, rebuild our military, and put Canada first? We need a change. We need to take back control of our economy. We need to stand by the people who build stuff, dig stuff, move stuff, make stuff. That's why common sense Conservatives will always stand with our employers and our unions right across this country to unleash the great Canadian promise that Albino Greco experienced when he arrived here back in 1973. The promise that was made and kept to my wife Anna and I, and the promise that we will restore for all Canadians. In a country where anyone from anywhere can achieve anything, where hard work gets you a great life in a beautiful home, on a safe street, protected by brave troops under a proud flag. Canada first. Let's bring it home. And in English, thank you very much. Well, on the issue of the environment and climate change, there's a big difference between the Carney-Trudeau Liberals and I. They have driven $500 billion of investment out of our country with heavy taxes and by blocking resource projects in this country. That drives up pollution in other countries because other industries abroad are more polluting. I'll give you the example of aluminum. In Canada, to make 1 ton of aluminum, you have 2 tons of greenhouse gases emitted. In China, 1 ton of aluminum means emitting 12 tons of greenhouse gases. By taxing our energy, our aluminum makers, we drive the production to China, where the emissions will be much higher. The atmosphere doesn't care where the emissions happen. It's the same from a chemical point of view. And so what I'm saying is let's bring down global emissions by bringing production back. Get rid of the industrial carbon tax and bring in a tax reward for businesses that produce steel, aluminum, cement, fertilizer, and other commodities below the global emissions average. So it's a global problem with a local solution. And that solution is to bring home our production and paychecks by repealing liberal taxes, liberal anti-development laws, and opening up our economy to the world so that we can bring down pollution. That's how you put Canada first. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rahim Ahmed, National Post. I guess welcome home to Nepean. I know your riding used to cut into the area before it was redistricted.
Yeah.
So speaking of homecomings, Mark Carney was in Edmonton yesterday to meet with Danielle Smith. Shortly after the meeting, Smith put out a list of demands for the next Prime Minister, including, among other things, ending the prohibition on single-use plastics. She said if these demands were not met within 6 months of the new mandate, there would be a national unity crisis. Are you willing to commit right now to meeting the demands that Premier Smith has enumerated?
I think Premier Smith's demands are very reasonable. You'll have to see the rest of our platform roll out in due course, but she was making clear that Mark Carney's using weasel words. He's pretending that he suddenly, 30 days before an election, changed his entire radical, net zero, keep it in the ground ideology. Mr. Carney, I can't even believe he would have the audacity to show up in Edmonton. He opposed the Northern Gateway pipeline in a committee testimony while his company was buying pipelines in the Middle East. That pipeline would have created jobs for Edmontonians. It would have been a boom for northern Alberta. And all of the money that would have rushed into Edmonton would have created opportunities. And he opposed it. It's on the record. He supports carbon taxes in Canada while he invests in American coal. Yesterday, his environment minister confirmed that the energy cap will stay in place if the Liberals are in office. So, despite the fact that they're trying to put on this mask last minute before the election, make no mistake, a fourth Liberal term will be exactly like the previous 3. It has been the lost Liberal decade. And this is the question Canadians are going to have to answer, do we want a fourth term of Liberals who block resources, tax our people, drive up our costs, unleash crime in our community, and make us weak and defenseless facing the Americans? Or do we want to put Canada first for a change by axing taxes, unleashing our resources, building homes, locking up criminals, rebuilding our military, standing up to the Americans, and putting Canada first?